right now.
Yeah, it's like, there you go. Yeah.
All right. The meeting will come to order. Welcome to the July 8th, 2025 Shellfish meeting. All right, I'll record that. I think I'm the secretary tonight, 6:33. Item 2, those present are Jason Quirk, Eric Quirk, Andy Blanchard, Noah Nygren. Got our harbor master, Darren Granada. All right. Item 3 on our agenda is approval of the minutes for May 13th of 2025. Can I get a motion to approve?
I will make a motion.
All right, thank you, Andy. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Second by Jason. Those in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, I'm gonna write that down real quick. Andy, Jason, and Russ. All right. Item 4 on our agenda is Harbor Master's report.
All right, so I'm just gonna go through a few items here, so give the committee an update just like I did to the coastal waters. The wait list has been updated substantially. I think there's 29 people on the rec list. I think there's a few on the commercial list, like 3. So we've everything was due by the end of March because we went to the online system. We gave them the month of April. Then in May, we made phone calls and emails, and we gave them through June. July 1st, if you haven't paid your fee and you haven't shown up, you come off the wait list. So I think 3 months is plenty of time for a grace period. We put some more moorings up at Clay Pits and Winnick's Neck. We're gonna try to put, there's probably just a few more spots at Pine Point, mostly for a few small wreck boats. We're hopefully, somebody from the town today met with parking, reference to trying to deal with some of the parking and paid parking and such down at the Coastal Waters Committee dealt with. That was dealt with today. They had a meeting. The parking lot down there where you guys park in the commercial red zone, I asked in October to have it relined. I asked in April to have it relined. I have asked 3 or 4 times in the last month. They said, yeah, we're gonna get it. It hasn't been done. We're gonna follow up again. So we are gonna try to next year. I think we're gonna try to resurface that whole lot and reline it so it'll look like Herd Park, but that we'll get a few years out of it. As you guys know, the docks have new rub rails. We've got some grant money from Props Neck Association for some no wake buoys, which we were trying to get in, but the stickers were back ordered. We have them now. We're gonna get those in. Anybody needs commercial stickers, let me know. Crane maintenance, we put the cranes on a schedule every quarter now so that we allocated more money into that budget line so that we can make sure we maintain those cranes that we spent almost 80 grand on. There'll be new floats going in at Ferry Beach and at the Pine Point boat ramp in spring of 2026. It was part of a grant that I wrote that we have to match some money to it, but we'll deal with that. And then there's new pier float money that was, I wrote a grant last June to get some money. We were allocated mid $90,000 from the state. We have to match that. So the Coastal Waters Committee, which I just met with, we're going to ask them to address town council and the budget committee next year to see if we can match that money to replace all the pier floats on the pier. We may utilize a few of those that are in good shape to try to extend it. There's a whole working issue there. Like we may try to extend it and put another piling in, but there's some permitting. So we're going to deal with that. And then we've got some, the conditional area is open back up July 12th, which is Saturday. Unless we get a lot of rain today, tomorrow, which I don't see that. The current biotoxin closure right now is for oysters only, and it's due to an algae called Alexandrium. It's an oyster. It basically is a problem with oysters digesting the algae, different than clams and mussels, and that's why oysters are closed and clams and mussels is not. As you guys know, the digging is fairly rugged right now. It's average, I would say, not wholesome like it was last year, but I've talked to a lot of people and checked a lot of people coming off the flats over the last few days, and it's encouraging to see the amount of seed that there is. So I think in a few years we're going to be back to where we were. I think that's all. That's it. I had a few questions. The reason I brought the algae up is I called DMR to find out why oysters were closed and shellfish and mussels were not, and the reason being is because whatever this specific algae is, it's a red tide closure for oysters, it's a biotoxin. Oysters cannot digest this type of algae like soft shell clams and mussels do. That's why it's still closed. They don't anticipate it being closed, long, but I think that it's gonna be a few more days. So that's all I got.
All right, appreciate it. Item 5, council liaisons report. Don't have Scott here tonight. So item 6 on our agenda is general public comments. But there are no members of the public. Item 7 is old business, but there is none. Item 8 is new business. And the first item of new business is discussion on water quality levels, and Darren kind of teed us up on some of that here. The red tide, looks like levels were starting to spike, and so the state closed us down, but they did not continue to spike, and so we opened back up. I even heard that oysters opened back up for a little while, but I'm not sure if they remained open. Like Darren was saying, they can't digest it the same way. And Andy, I think you mentioned you wanted to talk about E. coli levels.
So I was just wondering about the P90 scores.
Yeah.
When it would be time to start looking into ways to lower those scores. I know it's I don't know the scores exactly, but I know they're pretty high on Spurwink and Millbrook, a couple other places, and we just lost the upper portion of Millbrook and upper portion of the Nonsuch. That they weren't areas actually like clams, but I mean if they got like closed much more than Nonsuch, then you start getting the clay pits. So I don't know when that starts being concerned per se.
So what are you thinking of testing more at the town level, or I guess the action that you're referring to? Probably as Sarah Farr had mentioned, I believe it was her, the septic tanks.
Yeah, you can, I think you can test for to figure out what kind of bacteria it is, whether it's, I assume it probably is septic tanks, but if it's wildlife or farm animals or something else. And they figure that out, and Darren mentioned that it's not really that big of a problem, I guess. But
Okay.
I don't know.
Any thoughts on testing?
Yeah, the area they're talking about, it was way up in Millbrook, which there's a lot of runoff, because there's a lot of septic tanks up in there, and there's really not a lot of resource up in there. I talked to a handful of diggers when they when they proposed this closure back in March, April. I went to a handful of diggers that were around just to talk to them, and there was one spot that these guys, the Quirk brothers, brought up that above what they call the horseshoe or the S turn, they were gonna close it way down almost to the battlegrounds, and I had DMR look at some more testing, so they closed it above that, up towards Millbrook, way up in there where there's not a lot of product.
Up past Millbrook Lookout.
Yeah, it's way up in there.
Okay.
And then the other closure was basically from Woodside Drive around the bend, which you really didn't lose any flat. There's not a lot of product. There's really no product up in there. So the two closures that they looked at were areas that weren't productive of shellfish, but it made more sense to close them because of the relationship and the closeness to septics and leach beds and the amount of runoff in the rains.
Okay.
So they were actually, DMR was really good about reaching out to me, and the girl that actually covers water quality lives off of Chamberlain Road for DMR for this area.
Yeah.
So she and I have talked quite a bit and, I said, let me do some research. So I went to, some of the diggers and said, hey, is there stuff here? And the consensus was there's really not a lot of resource up there, so it wasn't gonna affect the industry really at all.
But I think it's, if it gets worse, then it could potentially.
You'd have to have P90 scores in the other stations that would elevate. And really, the only time of the year those P90 scores elevate is July and August.
I think docks got closed for just
Docks is closed seasonally, July and August.
July and August.
Right. So that will remain closed until September.
What about Spurwink?
Spurwink is open.
Yeah, but oh, sorry, the scores are getting pretty high over there.
They've typically got high because there's some septic systems over there.
Okay,
So, but they haven't flagged it. DMR hasn't flagged it, so I wouldn't really worry about it right yet.
okay, so when they flag it, how much of it like a notification is it usually to,
It could be, they could say we're looking at closing it a year from now.
okay. So I guess that's-
There's still a lot of resource in the Spurwink River. The problem is accessibility to access it. That's the issue. I've made some phone calls to Rachel Carson, like they basically have, a few of the people I talked to said, yeah, you can access those flats through Rachel Carson land. There's a few property owners over there that I've had conversations with that they were like, yeah, we have no problem. It's just a matter of, you'd have to park somewhere. You can't park, there's nowhere to park over there. You'd have to park at like Hank's place. You can't park on the Spurwink River, I mean, on the Spurwink Road on 77. And then it's accessibility to go down there and get to dig. I mean, you could drop a sled and walk out through there. I mean, there's a lot of product down in there, but it's a matter of its accessibility is the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like over, at least I've been digging for 7 years, and I mean, at least 3 of the years, there was pretty good digging over there, like, it's, so I think it would just be kind of a shame if we did use it to a peanut
Well,
store.
I think more of the issue is we put the Spring River onto a survey at the end of the year, and I really think that we need to really force a survey in the Spring River to really know what's there.
It's bad right
Yeah, what do you mean, surveys?
now. No, I mean, there's like no plans, there's a lot of area that it looks like most of the rest.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few flats down there below Starboard Lane, that have some clams there, but we have to survey it to really make an accurate statement of what there's there for title.
There's quite a bit of claims like up past the where it's closed off to,
Yeah,
there's a lot upward.
up close on the closed area.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it closes off like, it's like by Ivory Hill Lane, like it's a little down below that. It closes off from there up.
Yeah,
But I was told that if you go into Starboard Lane and you take a right and you go down on that edge, there's an island down in there at low tide. There's a lot of clams in there. So,
All right, and I'm looking at. Also trying to quickly pull up. A memo because I believe there is a survey for Spurwink.
yes, there is.
It's just that we don't know if anyone's signing up for it.
Well, usually people have been calling me a few days before,
Uh,
or the week before, but I can tell you right now.
so it's October 30th, this year. If they can do the Spurwink or the Nunsuch.
Yeah, you have October 29th, Wednesday, October 29th. At
Oh.
9:30. The 30th is the rain date, but yes, and it's the Spurwink River or the Nunsuch.
Okay.
Because we've done the one on Monday, the 19th, we've done the one on the 16th of June. The next one's October 13th is Winnick Clay Pits Eastern's Point, and then October 29th is the Spurwink and the Nunsuch River.
Well, that's a good transition. Was there any more discussion on water quality? Do you guys want to talk about 2025? Crab kills and,
Okay,
okay,
so I wanted to add some crab kills,
yeah,
just to like get all the conservation time out of the way.
sure. Well, So typically from a procedure standpoint, we wanna give people notice of these on our memo. We wanna vote on the memo at the beginning of the year so that everyone gets the piece of paper. We did add another one, so usually we've only done 3. And this year we have a 4th one, that I believe Jeff Quirk and Tom Do were at. They said it was very cold, maybe a little early,
Yeah, the one in April was a little early,
but we
but,
wanted to try to get that during folding season.
right,
We could try making it 5 crab kills next year.
Why, can't we just add like 3 crab kills like next week? Like, I mean, technically,
I'm not saying it's impossible, but
technically, that's how we've done it, like in the past, like, you know, you give it like 6 months notice, but I mean, usually there's only like 2 people that show up anyway, so like, if, what's stopping like just a couple people from going out like next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
I mean, the harbor master always has the ability to do a special project. I believe we gave him that provision. So it's possible. We also don't want to encourage more crab kills, unfortunately. What we're trying to encourage is the surveys. So if we have a lot of attendance of crab kills, that we may end up having less attendance at the surveys. Right now, we're getting hammered on surveys. I mean, even 2, we're getting complaints. The state wants to see 3. I think the town council would probably be more comfortable if we weren't getting criticized for only having 2.
How many people have been in the past couple of surveys?
the first survey, there was, 4, 5 people, and the second survey was 2.
But you know, that's 2 surveys. We don't have anybody signed up for October yet, right?
I have nothing for any of the other surveys.
So we really want to encourage people to go to those October surveys. That's part of it.
I think we're gonna have a tough time convincing people to give up a payday. Like, if I had to imagine, that's probably the, like a big portion of why no one showed up to the one a few weeks ago.
Right, Gil?
No, the third one, I think it was like the day the conditional area is open or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it, unless you're required, I think you're probably having a tough time finding people to get surveys.
Well, we made sure most of them are in May or October, at weird times as well. That way. We wouldn't be, I wouldn't put a survey in July or August, that's for sure. Even June would be hit or miss. But this has been basically the same skeleton for the past 5 years, starting with Matt Hassler. He's the one who organized the sequence of surveys, but it's the same time every year to eliminate that variable. That's why it's set up in May, June, and October. It's just been the same organization of flats every year. That being said, I mean, folks may be willing to consider another October or September crab kill. I don't know if it,
So like what, why wait so late in the year to do it?
like you said, paydays,
I mean, it's at night, so you're not really getting them.
but if it's midnight, you know what I mean? I tried to make sure most of them are. I don't know, I don't wanna put too many, some of them are during the summer, I think, so we got April, but then we got June. I think we got July and August off the top of my head.
Yeah. There's a July 17th and then there's an August one.
Yeah, we got We got a July 1st, July 17th, August 14th, so I mean, ideally. And I make sure to, I guess I roll those over as well, but it may be better to aim for April, June. 1 July, and then maybe 1 August. But I don't wanna put too many in the summer. Also, we've got a lot of people doing crab traps as well, so.
So I mean, if it only affects a couple of people, then couldn't we just add a couple like next week?
We could try, I mean, I don't know about next week, cause we've already had special crab kill this year, so that's our 5th one,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah, chances are not a lot of people will show up. But it doesn't look very organized, or sometimes I don't know, people can just read into it too much. If we got a harbor master just making executive decisions over here, it might not look so good for him politically, you know what I mean?
So I
So,
mean, if we voted in as a committee. Then it's committees voting in it. Perhaps we need some more crab kills or.
it'd be tough to, you know, technically, we're amending a memorandum here. I think, it's just, it's not so easy, unfortunately, once we've already voted on the conservation projects, you know what I mean? You have to make a change to what you already did. It's, whereas Darren approves of special projects, you don't really have to, because he has the authority to do that. So now we're asking Darren to wave the magic wand here. Unfortunately, in Scarborough, that's something that can get you criticized.
Well, I don't think it's going much further here, but I might as well try to make a motion. I personally could give I don't really care for criticism, so I mean, I don't really care how it looks. I'd rather get all my survey time out of the way next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The motion to add the 3 crab kills for next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m.
And location,
Jones Creek.
all right, do I have a second?
Sure.
All right.
Good idea.
Well, is it just your survey time or is the crabs that you wanted?
Well, both. I want to kill as many crabs as possible.
But you just want your survey time done next week, is
Yeah,
what you're
I'm
saying?
not waiting till October to do survey. I'm not, that's like the last minute, like if I.
What if you got traps?
Well, there's still
Yeah.
more, yeah, I mean, this motion did fail, just didn't get a second, but. There's other projects as well, there's spat box deployment and recovery. Sure, this is all gonna take place in October, but your crab trap will be done by then, certainly.
Yeah, then I gotta go trap crab every like. Rather just
Well,
banging it all out,
well,
3 hours,
plus-
3 hours, then what am I gonna sleep then, like. Might as well go crush some crabs.
We've already had 4 crab kills. I believe,
Yeah.
or 3, we got hold on, we got a July 17th and an August 14th coming
I've
right
had
up,
2 so far.
huh?
I think we've had 2 so far, I went to one of them, I didn't go to.
We didn't go to April, so we've had that one, we've had a July 1st. We've had a special project in May. But you still got July 17th, to August 14th. That should probably finish everything up.
Yeah, I know, but I gotta wait till July 14th and August 7th.
Yeah. But that being said, I mean, keep this in mind for next year, because we're gonna vote on the next memo 2026, and we can make sure we can try doing 5 planned projects, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But,
I don't like planning.
huh?
I don't like planning stuff.
Well, I'm fine, I'll do it though, I'll do it. But we can't just, yeah, I just don't think we can. Have Darren approve 3 projects, especially right now. It all,
I mean, I was just hoping the committee would approve it, I already asked there, said no.
oh,
The only reason I said no is I didn't wanna use the new ordinance. authority, like, if someone comes to me in October and says, hey, I gotta go back to college or August. I've done 2 crab kills, I've done 1 crab kill, I've done 1 survey, I need 4 hours. I think that's more the emergency action to take.
Yeah.
I didn't wanna exercise the authority, like Andy's like, can I go kill crabs tomorrow? I was like, I don't wanna open that box. Just to let him do it, cause I think that Noah's right, like, we set the conservation year and the projects. That there's X amount of diggers, they know when these are gonna go on, they can plan accordingly through the conservation year to execute the 12 hours. I think it's unfair for us to, I mean, a week from now is one thing, like if you guys decide, yeah, let's do a crab kill next week. I think that's fine, I don't have an issue with that if the committee votes that way, but I would force an email out to every harvester. And or if they don't have email, I'd give them a phone call and say, hey, just FYI, we've added a crab kill for conservation time, so it's equal access for everybody. That's my goal. I don't want it to look like I'm giving favoritism to one person to say, yeah, go kill crabs and we'll give you conservation time for it.
I probably went about this the wrong personal way, but truly, I think that there should be like an easier way to add stuff like this. Like crab kills, they don't really have. The one that I did, it was Joe Delano and I, it's just a couple people meeting up in the parking lot and then going out and crushing crabs for 3 hours. It's not like it's needs to be like a big like production or anything like it. I don't know, I just think like you rely on the honor system for the crab trapping. Why can't we rely on the honor system to do crab crushing? Why can't I crab crush like every day of the week or something like that? And not that I do, but why can't you just do whenever you want? Why do you have to wait for a certain event 4 times a year?
The problem is, Andy, I think that conservation projects, it's very specific in the ordinance that's already been approved through DMR, that the projects have to be accepted and approved by the commission. So that's the hurdle. We just can't start throwing them out like, hey, I wanna go do this next week. Because what happens is if we don't have some governing body looking at the document sets forth that's adopted by the commission, then people could just be like, yeah, I did 3 crab kills and I did them on these dates. And then that comes back on me to verify, well, how are you doing a crab kill on June 15th when high tide was at 9 PM? Like,
Well, I mean,
what?
that's a pretty obvious one. It's not nearly as obvious as crab trapping. People can just fudge those numbers.
Of course, the issue is the committee and the town is bound by the ordinance that says conservation projects may include X, Y, and Z and have to be accepted and approved by the Shellfish Commission. So that's what I think what Noah's is going on. The ordinance tells us what we can do and how we can do it. We just can't like start putting them out there unless for some reason, like we had like, 3 or 4 rain on surveys and crab kills and we didn't accomplish those conservation projects, then I think we come back to the committee and say, hey, the last 2 surveys, the last 2 crab kills we had to cancel because of weather. We want to institute X amount of conservation projects now for August and September. And then it has to go through the committee, and that's where the conservation projects are adopted through ordinance. We just can't just willy-nilly say we're gonna do it. I think that's his.
Yeah, and there's also a time for you that you can show up in your truck and you can see who was at the crab kill. It's, you can show up to that time.
Right, I go to every crab kill.
Right.
I'm required to. I mean, that's my job. I show up, I record their names, and then like the last crab kill was Brett and Finn and Jeff Quirk and Tom Doobie. I verified that information. They went out, they did their thing. It's on the honor system for them to do the 4 hours. I mean, they were leaving at like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then the next day I had to generate a document that basically said, on this date and this time, in pursuit with the ordinance, this conservation project was executed in this flat, and these 4 people did it, and that goes into the town clerk's office and it goes to DMR. So
Do you think DMR would go for in the future if it was more lenient as to when you could do it, or do you think it's always gonna?
DMR really has nothing to do with our conservation projects. This committee sets the conservation projects. DMR doesn't care what conservation projects are allocated, as long as we're showing 1 survey time to maintain flats and license allocation, And two, we're maintaining the conservation time set forth in the ordinance for crab kills and seeding, all those other projects.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of projects, so that's why I try to get them all into that document and then we vote on it. after.
Yeah, I just think it's, I don't know, it doesn't have to be as official as it is, but just like, I don't know, but each their own, I'll bring it up next time, next January.
Whenever you set the conservation year in October, if you want, instead of 4 or 5 crab kills. If you come to the committee with specific dates on like a Friday or Saturday night, because obviously, or even a weekday, it doesn't really matter. When the tide is low at 9:30, 10 o'clock. And if you propose 10 dates, then if the committee votes and accepts all 10 dates. That has no problem with me. I would encourage you to do more. And if, nobody shows up for 2 or 3 or 4 of those, it's not a big deal. I mean, people get their conservation time, but you give them the ability to have 10 crab kills through the summertime, and you give them the ability to do survey work. And that may change too, because if you end up altering the ordinance to say that you need 12 hours, 4 of which has to be survey time and 8 of which can be other conservation time, or 8 hours has to be survey time and 4, that's up to you guys, however you do that, but
I'd probably say 3 hours for a survey. And then,
Right.
And then 3, 9. But yeah.
right, however you guys decide, I'm just giving you examples.
You'd have to do every other year, and, cause you're not gonna do a 3-hour survey. If it, I guess we're on a different topic now, but whenever we do that, I would think you'd have to require I don't know, either, whatever surveys usually 5 hours, 4 hours.
Usually about 3.5 to 4 hours.
Is it 3? Okay.
Yeah, it's between 3 and 4 hours, depending on where you are and what the tide is. I mean, that's what it usually is.
Maybe we should just say attend one survey. And then the rest you can. But we'll talk about that later. But that brings us, was there any more on this topic, or you want to set the next agenda?
Yes, so next, yeah.
Okay, so item 9 is set next agenda. Do we have any items that we'd like to talk about during our August meeting?
Probably the,
Just so you know, Coastal Waters is not meeting in August, so if you want to loop to September, that's fine, but
Are we gonna have time?
it's up to you guys.
Are we gonna have time, or are we gonna be in a crunch here
For what?
for ordinance changes?
Well, I think if you want to make ordinance changes. I think you're gonna have plenty of time, but we should have if you want to make ordinance change, we should have it to DMR no later than November. So we have it back for December, and then we put it in front of town council or the ordinance committee January, February. You have plenty of time, but we'd have to be having that ordinance discussion in September.
So if you wanna plan on meeting in September, then that way we're not missing time like you are tonight in the middle of August.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And I think too, we should really make a conscious effort to make sure that if we are gonna do an ordinance change, that we make sure like September, usually we get more people on the committees because they're not traveling and it's not summer, so we make sure the entire committee is aware that you guys are gonna make an ordinance change so that they're here for the discussion.
Yeah.
Versus just 4 of you, make sure all 6 or 7 are here, right?
And so before that, if you had an interest out of town license like you were talking about, you'd wanna maybe talk to Darren, get his thoughts, and then ultimately talk to the members of the ordinance committee. Poll them, because like I said, if you don't have 2 votes spinning our wheels, dead on arrival. Well, that's unfortunately the way it works. It worked that way last time as well.
I think if you bring the ordinance committee solid data and like why you want to change, what you want to change because of X, Y, and Z, they're much more apt to ask the questions and you need to almost, you need to educate the ordinance committee on what you're changing, why you're changing it, and because we want to change it because it's going to work better for some X reason or it's not. And you be very transparent with them, and then they have the ability to vote on it.
Okay, so we'll put that down, September, we're gonna talk about ordinance changes, and I'll send out an email before with anything else that folks want to
Yeah.
add. Appreciate that, nothing else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, Jason, Sophie, 30 seconds, those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you, we are adjourned.